Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brownstone. I'm your host, Dr. Michele, and you are listening to Numbers Don't Lie. We learn to get out your feelings so you can make the best decisions for yourself, your family, and your business. So, guys, I have a treat for you, okay? We've been talking to phenomenal guests this past few weeks, most of them in the nonprofit space, helping you to tell your story, to make sure you're organized properly, planning, all that jazz, right? So today's guest fits right in there, except she takes the story and help you get some money with it. Okay. So I have an expert grant writer in the building that has won some major money. So if you are a nonprofit or a small business that's looking to secure more grants, because that's another way to pull in the resources you need so you can do the work that you really want to do. That's how I think about grants. To help you take the focus off of, oh, I got to get money. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then you end up in this rat race, always trying to get money, right? Instead of actually doing the work. We talked about that with our previous guests. We want you to actually do the work, and grants help you do that. So without further ado, Brownstone community, please welcome my friend, Teresa Pelham.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? I am Teresa Pelham, the founder and CEO of the Grants Boutique. And yes, I am a grant writer. I help you find the money and get the money so you can do the work.
I love it. I love it. So everybody listening, whether you listen on KCCR, the app, or you listening on Facebook, YouTube, brownstoneworldwide.com, y'all better turn this. You might want to get your notepad because we are digging in because technology is advancing. So we're going to touch some stuff. We're going to talk about like do's and don'ts. She knows what she's talking about, y'all. Okay. So go ahead and tune in and let's let Teresa tell us a little more about herself and how she out here winning these monies.
Yes. As I stated, I am a grant writer. I'm a grants coordinator. I have a 9-to-5 job business where I'm a grants coordinator, and I help monitor a $4 million Office of Head Start grant. And I think it's 12, maybe $18 million education grant, Department of Ed grant. So I do that, but I also own my own business, the Grants Boutique Consulting Firm, in which I help nonprofits, for-profits, HBCUs, tribal colleges, minority serving institutions, anybody that wants a grant, we help them. What we do is we help them do grant researches, we find the grants, we write the grants for them and help them submit them. And then after they get the grant, if they need help with managing the grant, because every grant you have to do reports, we also help do that. I also do training and technical assistance. So if you have a lot of nonprofits, they have someone in their office that write their grants for them where I help train them. Because I've been doing this for a while. I am a federal grant reviewer. So I review grants for a lot of federal agencies. And a lot of people say, well, what's a federal grant reviewer? I'm the person that they send the applications to. I read them, I score them, I write comments on them and send them back to the agency. And based on what I've written and scored, that's how they fund it.
Wow. So, what I tell y'all?
Yeah. So I do everything grants.
I mean, phenomenal. I love it. Teresa, you are amazing, guys. This is why this episode is called Conversations with a Top Performing Grant Writer, because she is. So can you tell us how you got into this space?
Well, it's a funny story. I was a teacher, a school teacher. I taught 4-year-old kindergarten. Yes, I was a school teacher. I taught 4-year-old kindergarten. And my husband and I, we have 6 children. So I needed to make some extra money for Christmas and everything. So it was an advertisement. The Department of Education were looking for federal grant reviews. And so I started my grant journey being a federal grant reviewer. And I evidently I'm good at it because now I chair a lot of the review team and help them with it. And I've done grant reviews for several agencies. And so I started that way. And so a friend said, well, Teresa, you review the grants, you should write them. And so I said, well, okay. So I took a class. Dr. Beverly Browning, a lot of people might not know her, but she wrote Grant Writing for Dummies. I took her class and she saw something in me and became my mentor.
Oh.
I even taught 4 of her grant writing courses. I was her instructional assistant. But then she was like, okay, Teresa, you need to go out on your own now. You got it. So I started writing grants, and it's been wonderful. I've gotten companies and organizations millions in grant funding. And I also have my own grant course that I wrote for Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah.
But I wrote for Bethune-Cookman, and now I'm teaching everyone to learn how to write grants. And I also have a book coming up. Well, it's a series of books, but the one that's going to be coming up in September is called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Grants. So I want to help entrepreneurs get their grant money.
Go, Teresa. And I had to ask that because you said it's a funny story. Like, I've had guests that are doing, entrepreneurship in one field, like, but they got like a biology degree, but in something else. You know what I'm like? Or they started here and they're just like somewhere totally different. So I knew you're gonna have an interesting story too.
Right. I didn't start out as a grant writer. And it's so funny that I am a grant writer now, and now I'm teaching, going to other organizations and other schools, telling children and students, hey, this is a profession and you can make money doing this. So
I love it. So the next question I have is just because, like, Chat GPT is all the rage, AI, like all that stuff is now commonplace. Like, whether people like it or not, it's here. So as technology advances, like, how can we use it to produce more or perhaps better quality, applications and proposals, or can we?
Right. Yeah, you can. I really don't use it because this is my profession. So I don't have to. But if you're starting out on grant, you can use Chat GPT. You can some of the grant questions, you can put it in Chat GPT and they'll give you an answer to it. But I caution you to review that answer, because remember, it's artificial intelligence. It's not you. It's not your organization. So you're going to have to go back and put you within the answer that they gave you. But if you are starting out, I don't see any problem with it. And then some people say about the ethical issue. Well, you're not going to do it word for word. Never do anything from Chat GPT word for word. Because like they say, they don't have your voice. They don't have your tone. Use it as a guide to help you answer those questions. And then once you do Chat GPT or Otter AI or any other technology, take it, review it, revise it, put your voice in it, put your data in it about your organization, and then you can submit your application. But it does help, especially if you're a beginner and haven't written a grant before.
That's a good point, because I know I use it to like start. Like you said, it's just like, it's not my finish, because it, I remember I was trying to craft an email, and I gave ChatGPT some details, and I was like, write me a persuasive email about da 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 da. So I sent it to my friends. I was like, hey, or my business buddies. I said, can y'all read this? Like, what do you think? They was like, I mean, it's fine, but you gonna put it in your voice? I was like, oh.
Right. and as a federal grant reviewer, when you submit your application, I can tell if it's you or Chat GPT. So I'm telling you, yeah, I can tell. But federal reviewers, we can tell. So use it as a guide to help you maybe get your thoughts organized, but don't just use Chat GPT for your answers. Don't do that.
So since you opened that door, so I'm just gonna ask, and if you can't answer, it's okay. So since you guys know, like, okay, this is obviously you guys use some type of AI. Does that look bad? You know what I mean? Is it like look negative?
It don't look bad, but when you fill out a grant application, the funder wants to know you. They want to know you and your organization. That's why I say you can use it as a guide, not as the definitive answers. Okay, it'll help you organize it. But what a funder wants to know, they want to know who you are and why they should give you their money. That's what they want to know. So you have to think. And when I tell people when they write grants, I think why I have such a high success is I don't think like a grant writer. I think like a funder.
Ooh.
I think about what the funder wants. I'll read the notice of funding opportunity, and then I say, okay, if I was this funder, what are they really asking me? And what do they want so I can get this money?
I love that.
So that's what you want to do. You want to not just think like a grant writer or think like your organization. Of course, a lot of nonprofits say, oh, this is my baby. I love it. This is why I do it. I understand that, but you got to come outside of yourself and think like that funder, because this funder has millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to give you. And you want to persuade them that, hey, my organization, my business is the best way for help you impact the community.
I love that. That's so funny you say that, because that's literally how I am as a student. Because I was a teacher, when I'm like taking tests, I'm like, I know what you're trying to ask me. Like, I immediately know. Or like I'm helping my niece with stuff, and I'm like, I see what they're trying to help you do, but they're not giving you enough information. Like, I just have that perspective. So that's a really great point, because that's an advantage.
Right.
So I'm like, I know I used to do well on my test because I knew exactly what they were trying to ask me while other people were confused, because I had a perspective. So y'all, Teresa just told you she got a cutting edge. Okay. So I mean, I never thought about it like that. So y'all definitely need to connect with her. Go ahead.
Yeah, and another thing, when you read that, it's when you go for a grant, they send out a notice of funding opportunity. And that tells you everything that the funder wants to go into a grant application. It's a guide. It's your guide. A lot of people maybe read it one time. I'm gonna give you a little grant writer tip. I read that, and I've been doing it for years. I read that notice of funding opportunity 3 times.
Wow.
One time, just to get me familiar with what they want. The second time, I use my highlighter, and I highlight main points. I use several colors. All the ands, I may put it yellow. All the ors, I put it blue, because a lot of times when I read grant applications that have been submitted, they miss information because they didn't see the and, or they didn't see the or. So I do that. And then I read it the 3rd time to really hone in what I'm writing. And then I start writing.
Pew, 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 pew. That's my sound effect.
Keeping it locked to KCCR Radio.
My station.
The Brownstone Center. And don't forget, no matter where you go, there we are.
Hey, friend. Now, I need you to be real with me. You've been following all the gurus and saying they tell you to do the marketing, the Facebook ads, or this, or that. Has that worked out for you? Do you know if it's even working? A lot of times y'all doing the most, but you don't even know if it's working. Keep trying something new. We really aren't even monitoring if the old is even working. But let me tell you this. I got a live demo, and I want you to be there. It's not your average webinar. I need you to be there, a B square, okay? You're gonna walk away with actual strategy, be able to implement in your business immediately. You're gonna know what to do next. Register now at powerofyourdata.com/demo. That's powerofyourdata.com/demo. Guys, you are listening to Numbers Don't Lie on KCCR The Brownstone with me, Dr. Michele. I have my special guest, Teresa Pelham, dropping some major nuggets about the grant writing business. Like, you got to think differently. This is so good. So you just joined in right now. You got to make sure you head over to brownstoneworldwide.com to catch the whole thing. Like this, the last part of the show, we about halfway through the show, is not going to do it justice. You need to hear her from the beginning. You make sure you connect with us on Facebook, Brownstone Worldwide, and you can hear it there. Check out brownstoneworldwide.com. We have tons of stuff going on. We have articles, news. We also have Brownstone Living Magazine, where we have just different ways to connect with each other, because the Brownstone Worldwide is a community where we get to use our voices and tell our stories our way. You can subscribe very cheaply. You can even be an advertiser. Okay. So very inexpensive opportunities. You better get it in before the price go up. That's all I'm going to say. Teresa, you out here just giving it to us. Okay. You got the sauce, girl.
Well, I really want, I'm just saying last year there were $1 billion in grant funding.
Wow.
Billions of dollars in grant funding. I really want us to get that funding, but I also want you to be prepared and ready to get it. A lot of times businesses say, oh, they'll call me and say, I need a grant. And I go through my spiel, telling them about what kind of grant you want, what kind of your business. And then I ask, are you ready for a grant? And a lot of times they're not ready to even apply for a grant. They
Right.
don't have their documents in order. They don't know their data. Because I'm telling you now, grants, and no matter what grant it is, you need data.
Mm-hmm.
You just need data. You need to know your metrics. You need to know your demographics. You need to know your number of people you're going to serve. A lot of times they ask you to use statistics from the Census Bureau or the Labor of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know that, then you need to get some help because we need that. You have to have data in a grant application. I'm sorry, no matter how small or how big, they're going to ask you for data.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because of course, y'all that listening, Dr. Michele, I am a data scientist. So I definitely, this is my space where she's talking about using data. So how does it actually strengthen the application? Does it make you look like more of a serious,
Yes.
organization?
Well, your data helps tell your story. And you want to have a compelling story. It's one thing that I can say, oh, we serve the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Another way is say, okay, we serve 100 homeless individuals.
Okay.
See the difference?
Mm-hmm.
It gives you more credibility. It allows the funder to see what you're actually doing and say, okay, they serve 100 with what they have now. If we give them this money, they can maybe possibly serve more, which is a greater impact in their community. That's the key with grants. Funders want to impact their communities, but they want to do it through your organization. So they'll give you the money to do the work, and to do the impact. So you have to have that data to prove that what you're doing is legit and credible.
That's good. Now I always say, like, tell your story, and I always put data, like tell your data story, because I don't think people really understand how powerful it is. And I'm glad you're saying it, and because you were attaching it to grants and money, so people gonna take you more seriously. But I say, and it's just like sometimes people think I say it as cliche or whatever. I'm like, no, like people understand numbers. Like it doesn't matter which language you speak, it doesn't matter your political affiliation. People understand numbers. If you are showing them how successful you are, and like she said, if you can do all this with what you have, like that means if we give you this money, it should be able to multiply it. Like I think that's so powerful what you said, and you said it a lot better than I could. So I got to play it back myself so I can quote you.
So I always tell people the proof is in the numbers. And that's what it is. Even when you get a grant, they look at it, you don't approve to them that you're capable of doing this. Then you have to do a report, and they want to see those numbers again. And they want to see some kind of growth in those numbers. So data is very important. We use it every day, all throughout grant applications. We use that.
Pew, 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 pew. Y'all, this is so good. Okay. Now this next question is personal. Like, I remember my pastor said something about it too. So usually, like, have you ever looked at like the past winners? And I apply for like the entrepreneurship grants. And so it's not, I don't be having to do the most like some of these more federal grants or the other ones. But I feel like the ones that win have like this tearjerker story. Like, oh, 2 years ago, my mother was going through cancer and we came up with this idea and I'd be like, well, shoot, I don't have those type of stories. So it seems like the one with at least the entrepreneur ones, tragedy wins grants. It seems like how can people that don't have like maybe this really emotional story, like, do they have a chance to win? Or like what can they do to give them a competitive edge?
Yes, you do. And even though people look at it as the tragedy, that's who get the money. It's not so much as the tragedy, it's how they told the story.
Oh,
they any grant that you do, you want to touch people's emotions. People don't think about that. They just they think grants are just a bunch of words and numbers on a paper. It isn't. It's storytelling. And when we tell that story, we want to touch people's emotions. We want to touch those funders' emotions and say, wow, this organization or this community really needs this money so they can get out of this plight, this poverty or whatever. So I know it sounds bad, but doom and gloom, when you do your needs assessment, they want to see the doom and gloom. Because if everything is okay, then you don't need the money.
Yeah.
So they really want to hear about the tragedies. They want to hear about the need. Not so much as tragedy, they want to hear about the need. What is the need in the organization? And how can you tell that story? How can you help me have a visual? That's what I always tell them. When you write your grant needs, it's called, they usually have a session in the grants called needs, your needs, or whatever. So in the needs part, you're telling them why you need this funding. And so in this need, because it's a need, you have to show them, you have to write so you can give them a visual of the doom and gloom of why you need this money and why is it so important. So that's why they win, because they know how to tell the story. So they know how to show the need.
So clearly I need to sign up for your class, because clearly my storytelling is not that good. And honestly, storytelling is fairly new to me. And I think it's fairly new to a lot of people, because like you said, like, I'm very straightforward. I'm very direct. And I'm pretty sure it's a lot of people out there like me. It's just like, okay, you ask me a question, I'm going to answer directly. Like, I don't have all the flowery words. Like Teresa, that's why English was not one of my favorite subjects. One, the books were terrible. But two, like the symbolism and like, using the language and writing these essays, I'm just like, I really have to use all these words? Like, why I got to write a 5-page paper to say this one thing? Like, that always bothered me. So I'm learning now.
Right. And that's the trick is, but when I'm going back to the notice of funding opportunity, because it tells you, when I tell you to highlight, you got to highlight those buzzwords in that notice of funding opportunity. And actually, I use some of the language that's in the NOFO into my answers. And see, some people don't know that. Use what they giving you and put it in your answers, And so you got to look at those buzzwords and expand on them.
That makes perfect sense, because when you apply for a job, you want to put those words in your application, in the essay part, or on your resume. So it's just like, oh, they said they needed someone that knows how to do, I'm using my stuff, to have great communication skills or machine learning or something. It's like one of my skills, communication skills, speaking skills, machine learning. So it's just like, oh, they have what I'm looking for. So that makes perfect sense, Teresa.
Yeah, it does, because a lot of people don't know that. They just go, oh, I'm just going to write this grant. And they just go and read it and write it. And a lot of times I have people send me their grant. Now I review it. I'd be like,
you be laughing at them.
No. I try to be nice, but I'm like, no, this isn't it. Make some comments, send it back to them. Like, no, you need to follow it. So
that is funny. A lot of people can't write.
It's true.
And I'm not talking about like, oh, they're a great storyteller. They know how to really put the words together. I'm talking about grammar, like throwing a period in there and a comma every now and then.
Yeah. I always tell people, don't have run-on sentences.
Girl.
You have one sentence, answer 4 questions in that one sentence. Put some periods, because now I'm just telling you this because as a grant reviewer, we read application. That application may have 250 pages. My eyes keep going. I may miss something, not intentionally, but that period causes my eye to stop. I'm like, oh, stop. So you got to make sure you have your punctuation and your grammar correct. That's just a little federal grant reviewer thing.
Baby, that's good etiquette. If you're gonna write something, let's use some punctuation up in there.
Yeah, because and I always tell when people write grants too, always put headings. If the NOFO say, give me the community needs or something, how you gonna implement it, just put implementation and then tell me how you're gonna implement it. Put the needs of the community and put headers. Just don't have all of them run together.
That's
just
good.
don't have all of them run together. That's just a little tip.
No, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So what advice would you give someone who's just starting to write grants for their business or nonprofit? And I know you already gave one about, if you're going to use AI tools, it's okay if you're just starting, but put in your own voice. But what other advice could you give folks like me?
Don't chase after the money. Stay true to your mission.
That's like the second time I heard that today. Seriously.
Yeah, I always have people who come to me and they might be doing babysitting, but then they want to get a grant for dog walking because they see the money. Don't change your mission. In our industry, it's called mission creep. You're getting away from what you said your mission is going to be. So don't do that. Don't chase after the money. There are grants out, let me tell you, there are grants out there basically for everything. You just have to find the right grant for you. Mm-hmm. Don't change your mission. Stay true to the course and you'll find a grant. You'll find a grant. Also, a lot of times people say, oh, I want a grant for my business. It might not be a grant for your business, but it may be a grant for your project. You might be having a project that you're going to feed the homeless, or you're going to do something for the elderly, or you're going to do some training for high school students. There may be a grant for that, not for your entire business, but it may be a grant for your project.
That's so good.
Those are two little tips. Yeah. A lot of times when we look for grants, people look for grants for their business.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes they come to me and I say, well, tell me what you do. And they'll say, well, I do this, I do that. I said, well, you know what? There's a grant for that. And there's a grant for that. There might not be a whole grant for your business, but you can get grants for your projects. And that will help you with your revenue and your income for your business.
That's good. So you mentioned the mission creep. Is it obvious? Like when people submit grants?
It is obvious. Because in some grant, you laugh. In some grant applications, you'll know, especially the federal grants. I write a lot of federal grants. Those are the high ticket dollar. That's a high dollar amount. They give out millions, but I write a lot of those grants. And those grants always ask you, tell us any other grant opportunities that you applied to. And the reason why, we looking to see, oh, okay, they done applied for this. They talking about they want this grant for this, but now they applied that grant. It's the same thing. You babysitting, now you want a grant for dog walk. So we look at that. We look at that. And a lot of times it shows in the implementation. We can read it. And if they don't thoroughly tell us how they're going to implement their project or what are they applying the grant for, we kind of know that, they ain't said, they didn't really describe what they're going to do. They gave us some general information. So yeah, we kind of know.
Teresa, this was so good. Like, I legit am going to have to go back and listen to it because I'm already poking holes in some applications. I'm like, no wonder I ain't win. So I'm pretty sure the listeners are thinking the same thing. Like, dang, she really out here just giving out so much good stuff. So how can people get in contact with you? Because I'm sure they're like, Dr. Michele, who is this lady? We got to know who she is. Can you please tell them how to find you?
Yes, you can always go to my website. It's www.thegrantsboutique.com. And also on my website, I'm going to give you a free grant readiness checklist. So you can if you go on my website and sign up, I give you a list of everything you need to apply for a grant, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit. And that kind of help you get your documents ready, get everything together to apply for a grant. Then you also can go to and contact me on LinkedIn. I'm just Teresa Pelham. You'll see me, grant writer. And you can go and message me that way if you would like and connect with me. I'm always looking for connections. I always post things on LinkedIn. And then I also have a Facebook group. It's called Teresa Pelham, but I also got a Facebook called The Winning Grant Formula. And I don't know. It'll be up. It was some Facebook do some things. so, but it's called The Winning Grant Formula.
Awesome. Well, I am so grateful that you stopped by the Brownstone today, that you shared with our community You reiterated that numbers don't lie. They tell a great story.
They sure do.
Thank you again. And thank you guys for tuning in to Numbers Don't Lie with me, Dr. Michele. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Mogul Beginnings. That's MOGUL, Mogul Beginnings. And I got some cool stuff going on. I have stuff going on all the time. I'm about to be going live a lot. So you might be seeing my face a lot more. So again, make sure you follow us on Brownstone Worldwide on Facebook and check us out on brownstoneworldwide.com. Again, thank you guys for tuning in and have a great